Hi, this is Random But Raw. Just going to go through a little lowdown on one of my recent tracks called Got What It Takes, which is now out on the Vicious Circle recordings. We'll focus a little bit on the bass line, the structure of the track, and also the Hoover riff, how the pattern was arranged, how to get the drive from how the pattern is arranged. So yeah, we'll focus firstly just on the bass line, just see how it sounds. I'll just turn the mic off. Right, mic back on again. Yeah, so the sounds are kind of like this. So it's layered with 3 different basses. And the key of the track is on a F sharp. That's quite important in terms of what key that you're going to put your tracks in. That's kind of quite a hard dramatic tone usually, but you can go quite melodic or you can go quite driving with it. So yeah, it's just a case of adding 3 basses together. One is a mid bass with a bit of sub. This one's more of a mid bass, that one. And then there's another layer. Play them together, that's what you get. So yeah, so it's just a case of finding a key that you're comfortable writing in. This one's in F sharp. And then yeah, so the Hoovers is just down here. So I'll just turn the mic off again. Yeah, so with the Hoover, it's a sampled Hoover. It's a decent enough Hoover anyway. It's quite important to use a decent Hoover sound. There's plenty of Hoover sounds in various sample packs. But the main key, although it is a good sound, it doesn't always match up with the track. Purely because the key of the Hoover might be wrong, so you've got to find the key of the Hoover in accordance to your bass line. So this one is actually on a it isn't, it's actually on an F, but you've just got to find it. You can use Newtone on FL to find the key, or you can just use your ears. Yeah, the most important thing though with this is the arrangement of it. There's a lot of emphasis on the lower ones, so the first and the second kick is the low Hoover of the 4th octave hitting the kick, so you kind of get that drive going, boom, 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 and then you've got your higher ones in between mainly that are doing the higher ones. So you just put ones on the kick, that gives it its drive. You've got the ones in between on the hi-hat, so they're the more sort of shorter ones generally in between there. And also there's a little pitch bend on certain notes. Very crucial to doing certain Hoovers. It can change the noise a little bit as well. So the pitch bend function is this here, and it's a little triangle. So if you click on it, there, it brings up a triangle at the end of the note. So what that's doing from this point here is it plays it from the top point of where the note actually is, and it finishes at the end of that note length at this point here. So take it off. So yeah, dramatic change there. So when you play it now, you'll realise the note difference, the pitch bend, very aggressive pitch bend. You can get a totally different sound from it. And then later on, it needs to have a little variation of Hoover. It can't just be the same pattern over and over again. Just got to change it up a little bit. So this one has more. And then the second one. Yeah, so that's kind of how the Hoovers were made. It is a decent enough sample anyway, but it's more of a case of pitch bending certain notes, putting certain notes on the kick to give it a drive, and then certain notes are just on the octave above. The problem is a lot of producers, including myself over the years, just tend to just put Hoovers in wherever and just go, yeah, just going to put them in there, and end up slamming loads of little Hoovers, which can be just a little bit boring really. It just becomes no groove. It's about the groove of the Hoovers that the pattern is creating, to get the drive and the groove at the same time, to get an infectious sound across and an infectious drive. So yeah, you've got to, less is more really. You've got to put certain noises in certain places to an extent, as in put them on the kick, put one or two off the kick, and just keep it simple. Don't just keep slamming loads of them in and things like that, and loads of choppy little ones just for the sake of it. It doesn't always work. Less is more sometimes with Hoovers to create that Hoover riff. So yeah, you just got to put them in certain places, get that drive across and get that infectious sound across, and work with the track, and just gradually just put the odd one more in here and there if you want, and things like that. So yeah, there is a little bit of a method to that. The next bit is obviously the break. I'll just turn the mic off again.
Get out of here, and I will. There's gonna be carnage.
Yeah, so it's kind of a film how do you say the word? A film suspense kind of break. The idea of it was to kind of replicate an 80s film feel to it. Hence what the vocal Got What It Takes is actually from a Freddy Krueger film, Nightmare on Elm Street. So I tried to replicate kind of an 80s film, horror, thriller, suspense based feel to it, and in order to get that, it's a combination of quite moody sounds in terms of its low end. So you would need like a drone in here, which is somewhere. There we are. Quite a low-endy kind of lead, filter cut-off really low on it. So yeah, the cut-off's really low on it, so it ultimately will be like this. Bring it all the way up. Yeah, just something really low sitting in the background, kind of giving it that bass feel to it. It's like a cinematic thing in a sense. There's also like a high ARP kind of lead. This is the Toxic Biohazard. Don't really use this much actually, but I decided to use it, see what happens with it, and managed to conjure up a ARP lead of some kind when it plays. Yeah. And that just required a little bit of low end off that. I think overall it's play it without. Yeah, and that was pretty much it on the break. There's a couple of little sort of drum and bass kind of noises. This was quite a nice one. Yeah, and just a little bit of panning left and right. And then the key part is how you're going to build your track up. It's simply filter something in. You can filter a lead in, you can filter a Hoover in this case it's the Hoover. So I'll just turn the mic off again so you can hear it.
Got what it takes.
There's gonna be carnage.
Yeah, so it's a case of filtering in something, a lead or a Hoover, essentially, and just give it a few kick drum build-ups, a few kicks in there just before, so at least you get that inkling there's a build-up. The build-ups don't have to be full-on and like some tracks do. They kind of have an anti-climax on occasions when that happens, so again, less is more. Just do a short build-up or do a kind of stop maybe 2 bars before it kicks in, like this case. So it actually stops there with the vocal, 2 bars before it kicks back in with an 8-bar build-up there, 6 bar actually. So yeah, it doesn't need a massive build-up. Sometimes a smaller build-up works better. If you just filter it in gently, bring it in right at the end, stop it, start again, you get that kind of nice jolt where it kicks on, kicks forward. It feels more impacting. There's more of an impact when it comes in at that point. Sometimes these big build-ups, it'll be massive build-up, sounds great, kicks back in, and it'll be overpowered by the fact that the break has had such a big build-up that it feels a bit of a letdown when it comes in. So yeah, you don't always have to do a big build-up. In this case there wasn't, and for me it felt like it worked better like that. Kicked in with the Hoover from that point, filtered fully up when it kicks back in, rather than it filtered in straight away at the full cut-off point. keep it sitting back on the break, simmering in, and then kick it in with all the beats and everything. So yeah, the next bit is, well, this bit here. There's some kind of mid synth that I've put in. Very simple, just a that's all it is. So again, you don't need to put much in. It's just, it needs to be in key with the track. It needs to be a decent enough noise, but it needs to get the track moving forward a little bit towards a certain section. Like it goes to the break with that bit, and then it comes out towards when you would mix your next track with that bit. So that's like a middle riff, very basic, but it does the job, and it kicks the track onto a certain section that you need to have a transition of. The difficulty with this bit was the EQing of it, really. It was a bit of a bugger to EQ. So I think with this, the EQ was essentially like that in the end, which is called subtractive EQing. There was very small increments of frequency in that noise that was causing a little bit of clashing because it was on the kick. That was mostly where it was causing those issues. But then you didn't want it to be completely out of low end altogether like that. You needed that up because you need to have a little bit of body of the sound. So yeah, what you can do is you can take out more of a pinpoint accurate frequency range by adding this here. Find it, number 5. Yeah, so it'll start off sort of like that as a line, but then you've got this function here where you can add a notch up or down. If you bring it to its tightest point, you can bring it up. That can pinpoint the frequency of something that's catching the track out. You can bring it down a little bit, so it essentially ducks out and brings off that frequency range, which this part is 2700 Hertz roughly. And then yeah, so it helps that sound sit better in your track. It's helpful for main riffs, very gritty leads and things where you've got quite a lot of frequencies going on, and you want to probably just take out just an area of frequency, but a very small area, just to get it sitting with your kick drum, sitting with your bass a little bit better, without having to take out a lot of frequency where it becomes thin. So yeah, that was quite a simple little lead. It was just mostly EQing. That was the difficulty of getting that part right. So yeah, in terms of hats and stuff, there are just a few little hats in there, layered. One, oh, the old saber hat again. I'm sure that's been used 1,000 times, but it's corded slightly, so it sounds different. Yeah, so it's just three hats in there. There's a good with the perks as well, is what drives the track is probably that noise. Now I'll just play that noise, actually I'll solo it. Now that kind of goes well with the track. It gives it a kind of techno edge slightly. I'll just play it with the full track. So yeah, little perk noise here and there, just maybe on the hi-hat, just a dwah, that kind of sort of groove. So that helps it drive forward as well. Another thing as well is little stabs, and like almost a stab bass, but on more of the mid-range. Now Now this kind of helps give it more power in terms of 16 bars after the bass line, so you need a little change up from after the bass line. 16 bars after, you need it to get more intense really without going too far with it, and a little stab noise of some kind goes with that, and maybe a little gated one there, and then it's just a simple acid stab, this one. It's all it needs sometimes, just something else just to drive it forward a little bit more subtly, so when you're mixing your track in and out into your next one, then you've got progression getting more intense without it being overpowering. So if you play it from, say, just before that section, yeah, so that's pretty much it. It's not a very intricate track, to be fair, and they don't always need to be, especially Hardhouse. It needs to have an element of the classic sounds in there, as long as it's not kind of too obvious, but it's all about the groove of the track with the drive combined to create a pattern that helps the track have an infectious sound to it. And then your break can be however you'd like it really. You've kind of got a license to do a break where you can almost do what you like with that bit, but then yeah, there does need to be an element of familiarity with Hardhouse, coupled with other genres maybe to a certain extent that you can bring in. You can add that slight techno effect, which I like to do on occasions, which is ultimately about having some industrial noises in there, perk noises and things like that, crunchy noises, things like that. So that gives it that kind of techno edge. And yeah, that can be a case of just putting 3 or 4 different loops in, and perk loops, and chopping them up and then putting them in certain ways till you've got a nice infectious groove that you would listen to over and over again. And yeah, so your main bit is your leads and stuff, or your Hoovers, in this case the Hoovers. It's all about the pattern more than anything else. So yeah, less is more. Just keep it flowing, keep it in a motion where it's not being too much at once, and sometimes you've got to swap noises around and take out noises and put them in later on again. Strip it back a little bit, build it back up, and then you've got a good length of track without it being too overpowering, and then you've got a nice flow to it that's good for the listeners, good for the DJs. The arrangement is good, so you can mix in and out nicely without having too much going on for your next track being in there. So yeah, it's all about balance really, in terms of getting the right noises in the right places and building a flow to the track. Ultimately, I've said this to quite a few, it's kind of like building a house. So you need to really do the layout first, which is your core shell of the house, and then you can delve into your rooms, which is ultimately parts of the track. So like your break, your main section, your bassline point, your end part. That's like your rooms, so you would focus on those bits individually after you've done a full layout. Then from that you would then need to just focus a little bit on your noises a bit more, but don't get sort of bogged down too much into the noises till the latter stages. It all becomes clear at the end. And then your little electrics and stuff, which is ultimately your tweaking of noises, getting them sitting right. And then you've got your painting, which is mix down mastering. You do the majority of that at the end. You can mix down as you go along, always a good thing, because you want it to sound decent enough as you're doing it. So you might want to EQ as you go along and just get your levels roughly right as you go along. But then you want to check it over, mix down at another day once you've got everything in place, and then you can readjust levels, readjust your EQ. It's always important to check through your headphones, panning, any little distortions that you've got in there. You can't always detect them on the speakers, but you can detect them through headphones. So you can get these little details, little clips and stuff like that through headphones. Make sure that you've not chopped any noises too early and things. And then, yeah, check them out on other devices. If you can check it out on your car stereos or on your phone, other set of speakers, docking stations. You can check it out through there in terms of how it sounds, and then you just go back and realise, well, yeah, this noise needs turning up, that noise needs turning down. So yeah, just check it out on as many devices as possible. So yeah, I hope that rundown has helped in some kind of way. Yeah, so the ultimate thing is just keep it simple, but keep it effective. So yeah, I hope it helps. Bye for now.